Hello, and welcome to step 2 of owning your time, part of the NeuroProductivity workshop, saying no to distractions. Now, for some people, this is going to be a hard concept to accept or even to visualize how we might do that or if it's even appropriate. With well-intended policies, such as an open door policy, and with work environments that can be very real time and urgent, it might be hard for us to prioritize minimizing distractions. But I hope in this video, I make a strong enough case for why you would want to do it and allow you then to choose how much time you're actually allocating for this process. So let's begin in the same place that we were with prioritizing, and talk about the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain that allows us to do executive functions, allows us to do the things that we would consider synonymous with leadership, like decision making, problem solving, planning, creating, and prioritizing. But what we want to understand is that the prefrontal cortex, not only, as we mentioned in the last lesson, is the most resource-intensive part of the brain, it's the least efficient, it also has a very, very small capacity. So if we consider that the entire brain processes about 11 million bits of information per second, that's a lot of horsepower. The prefrontal cortex is estimated to only be able to process about 400 bits of information per second. So if the prefrontal cortex's ability to process information is the money in your pocket, then your entire brain is the entire US economy. So you have a very small amount of capacity in the prefrontal cortex to process information. Also, we want to recognize that the prefrontal cortex does not do well with multitasking. It doesn't like to divide its attention. And when we do divide our attention, we reduce our intelligence or our IQ score from that of a Harvard grad to that of an 8-year-old. We also increase the amount of errors that are produced. So let's talk about why that is. Now, again, you have a very small amount of bandwidth, 400 bits per second. And so if we are focused on some project, something that we want to work on, and we're using that, our attention is where our prefrontal cortex gives us the ability to hold our attention on, let's say we are developing a report, as an example. If we have our attention on that, all the information that's associated with that report or what's meaningful to us, and even creative ideas on how to develop it, are what are taking up that 400 bits. If I'm distracted in the moment by someone coming in, it's not that we keep that in our brain and we pay attention. We drop all that information off of the prefrontal cortex and we start paying attention to the information of the person who's sharing with us or the email or the text. And then we have to recall all of that information. And this task switching, which is really what the prefrontal cortex primarily does, uses a lot of resources because we have to pull up neural circuits and then we have to cool them off. And we pull them up and cool them off. In doing that, we're burning a lot of information, a lot of resources, because like we said, the prefrontal cortex is resource-intensive area. Also, we're increasing the opportunity for error because every time I turn the circuit on and turn it off, it's like making a copy of a copy. I start to lose information. And the research suggests that individuals in a work environment can only focus on a task for about 11 minutes on average. And then it takes another 25 minutes for them to get back to what they were doing before, if they even get back to it. Research also suggests that we are task switching, going to our phones, going to our Teams messages, going to our social media, going to our email every 3 minutes. That's a lot of shifting for the prefrontal cortex, moving our attention from one thing to the next to the next. And you're burning a lot of resources. And sooner or later, you're not going to have enough glucose to do the activity you want, because those higher order activities take a lot of energy and you just won't have the energy to do it. So hopefully I've made a case that we want to have some undistracted time. And if the research suggests we only on average get 11 minutes, and sometimes we're switching every 3 minutes, then any improvement from that is beneficial to us. Even 15 minutes of undistracted time or 20 minutes of undistracted time would be valuable to us. So what should we do? Number one, we want to make it obvious that we are doing this. We want to communicate it to everyone. Put it on our calendar. Schedule undistracted time. Put a message on your door saying, I'm to be undistracted until this time. They did a study with nurses and showed that just by creating a simple signal to communicate that nurses were not to be distracted because they were working on paperwork, they reduced errors in medical records, which are very important, by 86% just by reducing or minimizing distractions. So people will respond and they'll pay attention. Schedule it, make it obvious that I've booked this time for undistracted work. I'm not available, the door is closed. Now for you, how do you set yourself up for success? Well, there's two types of distractions we have to deal with. The first are external, and those are a little bit easier for us to deal with. That means turning off all notifications, shutting down your email. If you can, work outside of your computer. Take your phone and shut it off. Move it outside the room if you can. Research suggests that even if our phone is in our view, it becomes a distraction even when turned off. We think about what we might be missing on there. We think about the messages that we might not be responding to. So you kind of want it out of sight, out of mind. Any external distraction should be removed from your awareness. That's great for external distractions. For internal distractions, you want to get used to inhibiting thoughts or capturing thoughts that aren't in alignment with what you're trying to accomplish. So a couple things you can do. Number one is you have something that comes up that's really important and you need to act on it, but you just don't want to focus on it in that moment. Go back to the sticky note idea. I love this. If I just have a sticky note nearby, I'll capture that idea. I can throw that into my prioritization process later. The brain does really good with recognizing that something's been captured. Likely that thought won't bother you again. Another thing that we can do is we can set up our environment such that we begin to condition the mind to understand that when I'm in this particular environment, I'm trying to focus and pay attention. And if we inhibit thoughts that come in during that environment, the brain starts to associate that environment with paying attention or focused activity. So you can play classical music in the background. You can change the lighting and have specific environmental cues that tell the mind and body that I am focusing during this time, and then shut them off immediately, restore the room back to distraction mode once your undistracted time is over. So those are three things that you should consider. Number one, make it obvious that I am to be undistracted at this time. Schedule it, put it on your calendar, choose an appropriate amount of time for you, whatever you can tolerate. 20, 30 minutes is great. And remember, you only have so much glucose, so you're not going to be able to work undistracted for probably much more than 30 or 45 minutes, and you're starting to get tired anyway. And so pick a time that works for you. Put it in your calendar as much as reasonable for you. Number two, eliminate and remove out of sight all communications or external distractions that could possibly bother you or take your attention away. And number three, set up your environment for undistracted work and start to condition the mind to know that this environment is when I'm paying attention. And if internal distractions do come in, capture them on a sticky note very quick so that you don't lose that information. I hope this is helpful for you, and I hope that you take the opportunity to say no to distractions, even if for a portion of time once a week, or ideally, if you can afford it, once a day. I'll see you in the next video.